I never thought a quiet town could feel so loud, and I sure never imagined my own garage would become a battlefield. But that's how this whole mess began, with a knock that didn't sound like a neighbor saying hello. It sounded like someone declaring ownership of something that wasn't theirs. My name is Marcus Hale. I live in a lakefront neighborhood in Redwood Bay, Washington, a place people like to call peaceful and community-minded. But trust me, sometimes the word community hides a whole lot of control. And that control showed up at my house wearing sunglasses, confidence that wasn't earned, and a clipboard she held like it was a badge. Her name was Linda Harrow, president of the Redwood Lakes Homeowners Association. And if you asked her, she'd probably say leader, protector of standards, pillar of the neighborhood. If you asked anyone who'd ever crossed her, they'd tell you she was something closer to a storm dressed like a rulebook. That morning, I was just enjoying my coffee, deck overlooking the lake, sun warming, everything just enough to make you forget the world has teeth. Then I see her near my gate, not uncertain, not hesitant like she wasn't visiting, but inspecting something she already owned. Before I could even get a word out, she went straight into it. Marcus, just letting you know, the association will be using your garage this weekend. No greeting, no maybe, no question mark. Just a statement thrown into the air like a law of nature. And I just stared at her because I thought, surely she lost a word in that sentence. Surely she meant to say ask. I set my mug down slowly and said, no, absolutely not. My garage is an HOA property. I'm not in your association. She tilted her head a little, like I just said something adorable and wrong at the same time. Everyone here is HOA, she replied, like she was correcting a child. It's a community showcase event. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I remember feeling this strange combination of disbelief and something colder, something like the quiet anger you get when you realize you're not being spoken to as a person, just an obstacle someone already decided they were going to move. I told her clearly again that my property deed predates their expansion. My house isn't under their control, and my garage is not open for whatever showcase fantasy she was organizing. She gave this dismissive, almost bored little breath like I was an inconvenience, waved her hand, and turned away. No argument. No compromise. Just certainty, the kind of certainty that makes your stomach tighten, because it isn't confidence, it's entitlement. I stood there for a while after she left, trying to convince myself that even someone like Linda must have limits. I had cameras, a reinforced garage door, alarms tied straight to my phone. Normal logic says no one is ridiculous enough to break into someone's private garage in broad daylight and pretend it's okay. But the thing about controlling people is this: they don't believe they're crossing boundaries. They believe boundaries, just didn't realize they were supposed to move. Life went back to normal for a few days, or at least I pretended it did. I went to work, I made dinner. I watched the lake calm down at night like it always did, but somewhere in my mind, there was this little thought that never fully left. She didn't look angry when I refused, she looked certain. And certainty is dangerous when it belongs to someone who doesn't respect no. So the morning everything really exploded, it started completely ordinary. I locked up like always, garage sealed, alarms on, cameras active. I left the driveway feeling good, thinking maybe I had overthought the whole thing. Maybe Linda was just one of those people who uses tone as a weapon, but eventually backs down. Maybe. But ordinary days have a way of flipping inside out before you even get to lunch. Because while I was at work, while I was thinking about meetings and emails and a sandwich from the cafeteria that always tastes slightly like disappointment, Linda made her move. She didn't call. She didn't leave a note. She didn't ask. She showed up with a locksmith and a story, a lie polished enough to sound like truth to someone who didn't know better. She told him she was the president of the Homeowners Association and the garage needed to be opened for an approved community event. No verification, no hesitation, just authority spoken with enough confidence that no one questioned it. And that lock that I trusted, it came right off. Then came the cars. Loud engines echoing through the neighborhood, flashy muscle cars, shiny vintage classics, polished luxury, ones people treat like museum pieces. And right in the middle of it all stood Linda, directing everything like a movie director who forgot this wasn't her set. My garage turned into her stage. My space turned into her achievement. like I wasn't even part of the equation, like I'd already been erased. And the craziest part? Nobody thought anything was wrong. People laughed, admired paint jobs, polished hoods with care. Because when someone sounds official long enough, folks just assume they're allowed to do whatever they're doing. Power is funny like that. Sometimes it isn't real power, just confidence that goes unchallenged. By the time I pulled back in my driveway that evening, tired from work and ready to relax, I didn't walk into my home. I walked into a shock. Engines rumbling where silence should have been, voices echoing out of my garage, laughter bouncing off walls that didn't belong to them. My garage door was wide open like it wasn't ever meant to close again. And for a second my brain just refused to process what I was seeing. Cars. Everywhere. My tools moved. My space swallowed by something I never agreed to. Then I saw her. Sunglasses. Clipboard. That same unearned authority. Standing there like a queen among chrome and stolen space. That was the moment when the calm broke. And that's exactly where everything began to shift. I don't even remember walking from my car to the garage. It felt like my body moved faster than my mind could keep up, like instinct took the wheel while my thoughts were still stuck back at the moment of disbelief. I stepped inside, and the smell hit first. Engine heat, rubber, gasoline, that thick scent that comes from too many cars breathing the same enclosed air inside my garage. I stared at all of it like I'd stepped into some alternate universe that just happened to look a lot like my house. And then my eyes locked on Linda. She didn't look surprised to see me. She didn't look worried. If anything, she looked mildly inconvenienced, like I'd walked into a room she was using and interrupted her concentration. "Marcus," she said, like we were old friends, like this was normal. "You're home earlier than I expected." I could hear myself breathing. That's how angry I was. "What is this?" My voice cracked, not from fear, but from disbelief stretched so tight it hurt. "What did you do to my garage?" She didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge how insane the situation was. Instead, she lifted her clipboard like a shield and said, "Relax, okay? We're using it for the weekend. It's already started. It'll be done soon. This is for the neighborhood, for the association. It's not a big deal. Don't turn this into drama." Drama. That's what she called it. Me reacting to someone breaking into my locked garage and filling it with strangers' property. Drama. I remember my voice starting to shake, not from weakness, but from trying really, really hard not to explode. "You broke into my garage. You tamper with my lock. You move my things. You let people into my house without permission." She rolled her eyes like I was whining. "You are part of this community, whether you want to be or not. Sometimes being part of something means sacrificing a little. This helps property value, appearance, unity. You not cooperating makes you the problem, Marcus." And there it was. Not confusion, not a mistake, a belief. She genuinely thought the world bent toward whatever she decided community meant. She wasn't just entitled, she was convinced she was right. And that was the part that chilled me, more than the broken lock, more than the stranger's feet away from my home. The fact she really didn't see a problem. Something inside me switched off then. Not anger, not panic. Something colder, something clear. I stopped arguing, stopped trying to explain basic human boundaries to someone who'd already decided her rules replaced everyone else's. I just turned around and walked out. I could feel her staring at my back like I'd just committed some disrespectful act by not continuing to play my assigned role in her little power play. Inside the house, everything felt too quiet compared to the chaos in my garage. I didn't pace. I didn't yell. I sat down, took a slow breath, and pulled out my phone. When I called my attorney, Daniel, he picked up on the second ring, and the moment I finished telling him what happened, silence filled the line for a long second. Then he spoke, voice low and sharp, like someone who knows exactly what line has just been crossed. "She hired a locksmith to open a locked garage? And you're not under that HOA at all?" "Never have been," I said. "My deed doesn't fall under them." I told her. She ignored it. He exhaled like he was releasing a whole storm. "Okay, listen carefully. This is breaking and entering. Unauthorized entry. Tampering with property. Potential vandalism. Every car in there is trespassing. Call tow trucks now. Have everything removed. Document everything. I'm coming to you." And the moment he said that, The knot in my chest loosened because for the first time that day, I wasn't crazy, I wasn't difficult, I wasn't dramatic. I was right. So I made the call. And let me tell you, when you're deeply calm while the world around you is loud and chaotic, that calm becomes something powerful. Less than 30 minutes later, I heard new engines roll up. Heavier, stronger, tow trucks. Big mechanical reality arriving to crash through Linda's fantasy of control. The drivers got out like they'd done this 1,000 times, professional, efficient, unfazed by chaos. They photographed everything, took VIN numbers, checked information, made sure every step was legal and documented. Because if we were going to do this, we were going to do it right. That's when Linda finally realized something wasn't going her way. She saw chains hook under chrome, hydraulics lift a very expensive piece of someone's ego into the air, and her composure cracked. She stormed toward the nearest driver, yelling, "Stop! What do you think you're doing? These cars belong here. This is an approved community showcase." The tow operator didn't even look at her. He'd clearly dealt with people like her before. Calm, unmoved, focused, which only made her angrier. Then she turned to me, red face, eyes burning, panic hiding behind authority she suddenly wasn't sure she still had. "You can't do this, Marcus. This is HOA property right now. This is under our jurisdiction. You're going to ruin everything." And I just looked at her, finally feeling something close to peace. "No, Linda, you ruined everything when you broke into my garage. These cars don't belong here. None of this belongs here." Another metallic clank. Another car lifted, and you could see her vision of herself unraveling in real time. Neighbors had gathered by then. Phones out. Whispers turning into full conversations. People who smiled politely at her in meetings, now staring with wide eyes, because what she'd always done with words, she'd finally done physically. She'd finally crossed a line you can't pretty up with speeches about unity and standards. And that's when she snapped completely. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, dialed, and made sure everyone could hear her voice when she said the words she thought would save her. "Yes, this is an emergency. There's a man illegally towing HOA vehicles. He is hostile. We need officers immediately." When she hung up, she gave me this twisted little smirk like she just played her trump card. Like the system she always leaned on was about to swoop down and put me back in my place. Minutes later, the flashing lights arrived. Uniforms. Authority. The kind she didn't invent, the kind that wasn't based on her title. She rushed them like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline, already halfway in tears, voice shaking in that dramatic tone people use when they want to seem like victims instead of architects of chaos. And for a second, I watched her and wondered how many times she'd gotten her way simply by sounding confident or sounding fragile at the right moment. Then one of the officers looked past her and made eye contact with me. "Sir, we'd like to hear your side." And just like that, the narrative shifted. Because power built on pretending collapses the moment truth walks into the room, calmly holding evidence. And standing there, hearing the tow chains rattling behind me, feeling the eyes of half the neighborhood watching, knowing my home had been violated and I finally had the chance to take it back, I knew this moment mattered a whole lot more than just cars in a garage. It was about boundaries, respect, and what happens when someone finally pushes back on a person who never thought anyone would. And that was when everything truly flipped. Standing there in front of the officers, with tow trucks humming, neighbors whispering, Linda hovering like a storm that just realized it was losing strength, I felt something I hadn't felt since this whole thing started. Control. Not loud control, not aggressive, just the quiet kind, the grounded kind, the kind that comes from knowing the law is finally standing in the same room as the truth. I explained everything slowly, calmly, like I wasn't telling a story fueled by anger, just laying out facts carved in stone. I told them about the first conversation, the refusal she ignored, the garage she'd broken while I was gone, the locksmith, the cars, the entitlement dressed up like authority. One officer listened, brows slowly tightening, glancing occasionally at Linda like he was already starting to see through the performance. Then I showed them the proof. Footage of the locksmith arriving. Footage of the garage door lifting. Footage of cars being guided in while Linda stood there like a conductor with a clipboard. And there's something really powerful about watching someone's confidence drain out of their face when reality finally refuses to bend anymore. The officers turned to her. "So let me understand this." One of them said, voice steady but heavy in a way that means words are about to matter. "You hired someone to open a locked garage that does not belong to your association. Without permission." Linda opened her mouth and closed it, then tried again like maybe this time a good enough spin would magically erase everything. "This was for the community," she stammered. "This neighborhood works because people cooperate. He's always been separate. I was just trying to keep consistency. I'm the HOA president. I'm responsible for maintaining standards." She said it like a confession wrapped in justification. Like if she said community enough times it might turn a crime into a misunderstanding. The officer didn't soften. "Being president doesn't give you the authority to break into private property," he said. "If anything, your position makes this worse because you should know better." And it was in that moment that every ounce of power she thought she had evaporated. She looked at me then, not with superiority, not with annoyance, but with disbelief, like she truly couldn't understand why, for once, the world wasn't bending toward her will. "I like to press charges," I said quietly. And everything stopped for a second. You could feel it. Neighbors holding breath. Engines humming in the background. Linda's hand tightening around that clipboard like it was going to rewrite this moment for her. But it didn't. "Ma'am," the officer said, voice professional, final. "Place your hands behind your back." The sound of the cuff clicking shut echoed louder than any engine. Her clipboard hit the floor. Her voice cracked, desperation kicking through the cracks of denial. "No, wait, this is a misunderstanding. You don't understand. I was trying to help, but help doesn't look like breaking into someone's life and calling it leadership. Help doesn't erase consent and name it community." They guided her to the patrol car, while the last of the vehicles were towed away, one machine at a time, being escorted off my property like pieces of a lie being dismantled in public. The showcase collapsed in front of everyone. The crowd wasn't cheering. They were quiet. Because sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's a mirror, and everyone has to look into it. By the next morning, the neighborhood wasn't quiet anymore. It buzzed. HOA emails exploded. Emergency meetings were held. Lines were drawn. People who always nodded along with her suddenly wanted distance. Authority without accountability doesn't survive sunlight very well. Linda was removed as president. Charges moved forward. Some of the same people who once admired how strong she was now wondered how they'd ever mistaken control for leadership. And my garage went back to being just a garage. Tools on the wall. Quiet air. My space. I remember standing inside that evening, door closed, the silence heavier, but in a peaceful way, like the house exhaled after holding its breath for too long. And I realized something: power doesn't come from titles. Respect doesn't come from demanding it. And community isn't real if it's built on fear, on pressure, on people swallowing no just to avoid conflict. Sometimes you have to draw a line and hold it, not because you like confrontation, but because some people only understand boundaries when they collide with them. And here's the part that sticks with me most. This wasn't really about cars or garages, or even one entitled woman with a clipboard and a loud voice. It was about how far someone will go when they convince themselves they're always right, and how dangerous it can get when nobody stops them. It made me look at neighbors differently, leadership differently, myself differently, because I realized I could have stayed quiet, avoided trouble, let it slide for the community, but then what stops the next line from being crossed, and the next one after that? So yeah, peace came back, but not the same kind, a stronger kind. The kind earned by not letting someone else write your story for you. Now I really want to know what you think. Was I right to push it this far, to press charges, to make it public instead of handling it quietly? Or do you think community rules sometimes deserve more flexibility? Have you ever dealt with someone who thought their title gave them the right to step into your life and rearrange it? Tell me in the comments, because I promise this isn't just my story. This happens in neighborhoods, offices, families, HOAs everywhere. And maybe talking about it out loud is where real community actually begins. If you were here for the whole story, Hit like, share this with someone who loves justice, served with a little poetic timing, and subscribe for more real stories where entitlement finally meets consequences.